Morning on this bright sunny day. That's kind of something that's not been for a while, right? Wake up and it's raining again. This morning I want to talk about the title of my sermon this morning is Worldliness. And I think that's something that we need to look at more and more. What should we be chasing in our life? Are we chasing God or are we chasing the world? We got to live in this world. We got to, have a job, pay bills, do those kind of things. But what are we chasing? What is the thing that we're seeking in our life? I just want to ask you this question: do you know the definition of worldliness? Do you know what does that mean to you? When you hear that word, what does that mean? Well, worldliness is everything we try to replace God with. It's kind of that simple. There's only about one sin in this world. Now, there's lots of different ways to sin, but there's only one thing, and that is taking our trust in God and thinking that we need something else to complete us. Okay? So I'm going to describe it to you this way. Charles Stanley, I listened to a message he preached here a while back, and it kind of got me to thinking about this. But the way he said it was every time we sin, that means that we don't have faith in God. And he kind of put it in that sense. He says, and he goes, let me explain this to you. And what it really got to me, it says, because God says, I am what you need. I complete you. I'm your source. I think, are we getting ready to go dead? But I am the source for everything in your life. And when we go away from that, we're saying that we need more than God can provide. Does that make sense? See, Adam and Eve, when they were tempted by Satan, what was Satan's temptation to them? Satan's temptation to them was, don't you think you need more than what God can give you? Or actually what Satan was telling them was, if you eat of this fruit, you can be equal to God. But I want you to think about this is what we do every day is we know what's right. We know what we need. We know that. But the world is whispering in our ear, that's not enough. That's not enough. How many times has that got us in trouble in our lifetime? It was when somebody else talked us into doing something and we knew we were not supposed to do it. But that same little voice said, God's not enough. God's not enough. We're going to pause for technical difficulties. No. Is that better? It just sounds awful low to me. But it's not working now? Well, maybe there's something in there. Just don't turn a whole bunch of buttons you don't know you're turning. It should be the speaker. There's two of them there. There's two got on the very far left side. That work? Well, we'll just have to do it this way. So anyway, thing about it is every day we don't look at it that way, but it's exactly what it is when we decide to go our own way, we're saying that God's not enough for us. And how many times does that get us in trouble? And everybody does it. Everybody has to try out what the world has to give them, right? We all have to have that time in our life that we try to experience the things of the world. I hear people even saying, well, you need to go out and experience the world. But you know what? I'm going to put it this way. It's kind of like you're going out and taste testing. Now, there's some things in life that you can go out and taste test, and it can bite you back. Have you ever had some food that you've ate that's spicy? And you can get that probably at my mom and dad's on Sunday dinner. But you can eat some food sometime that bites you back, and it bites you back for a while, right? We know that. I mean, especially somebody that doesn't like spicy stuff, and then somebody brings something spicy, and you can tell people that don't eat spicy food because you hear them going, whew, and then they start sweating, and they get, what was in that? But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things that we can taste out or we can try out in this world that bite us back, and they just keep biting us back. See, that's Satan telling you and me we have to try the world out. We have to try all the things that the world has to offer. And God throughout the whole Bible says, do not do that. Do not do that. Follow me, and I will preserve you. I will take care of you. I will strengthen you. I will give you rest in your soul. The world is not going to give us rest. The world's going to tell you and me that you can never be satisfied. Now, Satan doesn't come out and say that in a moment, but everything that we try worldly besides God will not satisfy you. It will always leave you feeling empty. It will always make us feel alone, and we can't allow Satan to tell us that's what we need in our life. As we get started in James, worldly pride. Now, I know that every one of us have went through a stage when we was teenagers that we knew absolutely everything. Right? Everybody here, when you was a teenager, we went through that stage that we knew absolutely everything, and our parents were the most dumbest people in the world. Did it ever amaze you that the older you got, the smarter your parents got? I mean, at my age, I can see that now, right? Pride is one of those things that gets us in trouble. How many of us say, I've got this. I can handle it. And how well are we doing that without God? Not very good. So I want to go to James chapter 3 as we get started. It says, who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness and of wisdom. Okay, now wait a minute. How many of you, when you see somebody that thinks they're really wise or really smart, that following couple of words comes behind that? In meekness, we don't see that today, do we? See, it's important that we realize where we're gathering our wisdom and our strength from, and our knowledge is we need to gather it from those that love us. We need to gather it from those that want the very best for our life. It's not that I can tell you everything I know to make you feel bad kind of person. Now, we all know those kind of people. What God's saying, and God's telling us, he goes, I know everything, and I want you to know it. I want you to know the answers to life. I want you to know how to live life and not go down paths or take that, experience things that you shouldn't be experiencing. That's going to cause great pain. God says, well, who are you gathering your wisdom from? Who is the one that you are going to obtain that from? And he goes, look at him. Because God's not dwelling on the earth with us. There's people in this world. There's mentors. There's people that we can look at and see that they're living a godly life, and their life shows it. Okay? We've all heard the saying, and we've probably said it, do as I say, not as I do. That does not work. Because we do what we see. You know that silly kind of little meme, monkey see, monkey do? We're a bunch of monkeys. Right? I mean, we're going to do what we see. We're going to do what we're enticed to do. And the thing about it is we need to realize that we need to be enticed to follow God. Here's the other side of it. It says, but if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. The wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. It says you just look at what the motive of the people that are trying to motivate your life. What is it? Is it something that is selfish and it's destructive? Or is it somebody that's trying to encourage you and lift you up and help you to have a better life? Okay? We have to see who are we following. And you say, well, I don't follow nobody. I cut my own trail. Yeah, we're following somebody. We do. We're followers. People are followers. And we're going to follow one or the other. There's only two choices. There's not A, B, C, or D, all of the above or none of the above. It's two, God or Satan. That's the two we're going to follow. And here's the two descriptions. The one that has meekness and just awesome wisdom that wants to provide understanding and for your life, or the one that wants to make you just so angry inside you want to blow up. You know, a lot of people today, we talk about, it says, I just feel angry right now. I just feel upset. You know, it doesn't take very much to set me off. Does that sound like anybody? Is that what you're feeling right now? Right? How quick does it take us our fuse before the dynamite blows? I think it's kind of a product of our environment, and I think that environment was produced to make us feel that way, guys. I don't think the things of this world just happen. I think they're orchestrated. Who are you letting guide your life? Because Satan wants to produce fear and anger in your hearts and destroy you. What is the product of that? The product of that is that we start separating ourselves from everybody else. And we're alone. Right? What's it say? That there's safety in numbers. God says don't forsake the gathering of the believers, and he wants the believers to stand shoulder to shoulder beside each other so that we can battle this battle. And Satan puts strife and anger and hate in our hearts, where we get mad at our husbands, our wives, our kids, our parents, our neighbors, our church members. And what is the first thing that we do? We run off to the desert by ourselves, where we have no protection. It's important that we understand the truth and know how to live our life. Verse 17, it says, or I'm going to read 16 again. It says, for where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. I think if you can sum up a lot of things in this world today, we'll just say we're confused. Right? We're just confused. I just don't know the right answer. We can know it. In verse 17 it says, but the wisdom that is from above, here's what we should be seeking, is pure, it's peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Look at the two differences right there. You got anger and hate and selfishness. Then you got peace and gentleness and mercy. See the difference? What would we really want our hearts to be? Would you like to have more peace in your heart? Would you like to be more gentle with the people around you? Would you like to just be able to live life and just not be so angry all the time? See, Satan's putting that in our hearts to make us angry at everyone. Nobody's right. You're the only one that's right. Why does everybody do everything wrong? Have you ever had that mindset come in? In verse 18 it says, and the fruits of righteousness is sown into peace of them that make peace. We have to start living our life intentional, people. We can't just fly by the seat of our pants and hope we make it. We have to, if we want peace in our soul, we got to plant peace in our soul. A lot of people right now are planting gardens if it'll ever dry up, right? Enough to get a garden out, but you kind of know what you're planting, don't you? You hope. You open up a bag and you think, well, this is whatever, it's corn or beans. And for a lot of people, we know what seeds look like. We know what a kernel of corn is. We know what a bean is. We know that. But you look at a lot of these plants that's got these itty-bitty seeds, and they're all little white ones, and they all look the same size. I've planted stuff before that it's like, well, that wasn't what I thought it was. You know, when it came up. You see, the thing about it is we need to plant it. We need to be patient and know that God's going to produce it. Okay? See, when we plant peace in our soul, and how do we do that? We do that by allowing Jesus Christ to be a part of our life. When we plant that peace, and we will reap peace. If we grab a hold of the worldliness and say, I need to experience the world, guess what's going to happen at harvest time? You're gonna reap exactly what Satan wanted you to. And Satan wants us to harvest destruction and hate and anger, all of those things. God says, I want you to have peace in your soul. I want you to be gentle kind of people. Be compassionate. look around and see someone hurting. You know, a lot of the people today, especially in social media, they look for people to hurt instead of people that they can hold their hand out and say, how can I help you? How can I share life with you? See, it's that important. It's that important that we understand that and see the difference between the two things, between the worldliness and godliness. But Satan's pretty good at making our minds think that we got it all figured out. And pride is one of those things that says, for one, I'm not going to ask for help. For two, I don't want anybody to know how big a mess I am, right? I thought I didn't have friends before I told everybody what was going on in my life, right? See, we just need to be that kind of people. We need to be that we could share life with one another, no matter what it was, and it's just sharing life together. And to know that, and that we have a God that loves us, and He will do that with us. You can tell Him anything. He's the greatest counselor that you could ever go to, and He doesn't have a high fee. And it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we can tell Him anything. But in James 4, 1 through 3, it says, "From whence comes wars and fighting among you? Come they not hence even of your lust, that wars in your members? You lust and have not, you kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. You fight and war, yet you have not, because you ask not. You ask and receive not, because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lust." You know, you read these three verses and you say, that's kind of hard verses to hear. But it basically says, where does all the trouble come from in this world? Where does it come from? Well, a lot of us would like to say, well, it comes from the Democrats. Right? Or we can say so-and-so, or we can say, oh, my ex, or we can go all the way around. That guy that I work with, he's something else. Do you know where most of our trouble comes from? Right here. Our own heart. The way we perceive things, the way we react to things, the way we do things. Right here it says, why do we have wars? Why do we have fights? Why do we have all this? Because we're a selfish people that we cannot be complete. Because we keep grabbing hold of the things of the world, and the things of the world are starving us to death. And we're hungry, and we're faint. And it's not working. All of the trouble in our lives is because of the decisions they've made. Now, sometimes it's someone else that is, their bad decisions are causing conflict in our life. And that's kind of hard to deal with. But the thing is we need God. I want to go back to where I was talking a minute ago, where it says when we sin, when we do things wrong, it's a lack of faithfulness for us, that we say, God, you're not enough. I need what the world has to offer to add to my life. In verse 4 it says, basically, they compare it to us being adulterers. It says, you adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. It says when we decide that the world has what we need instead of God, it's almost like we're committing adultery to God. That the relationship that we have with God, we tell Him, I'm stepping out and I want to get my needs fulfilled with something else. You know, when I was reading that, I got to thinking, man, that just says exactly what we do in our life, right? Now, you get into marriages, and we know lots of times there's going on there, but a lot of times we listen to the world and we listen to Satan that our partner is not enough. That if that person over here has everything we need, and a lot of marriages are broken by that. You just think about that example right there, that we listen to the world. God give us a spouse. He give us, he had a plan for our life. But then we start flipping through our phones or magazines and all these other things, and looking at all the requirements it is to be the perfect man or the perfect woman, right? There's none of us going to ever meet that. The thing about it is God provides all your needs. He has a standard. He has a way of doing things that every desire in our life can be fulfilled. Without getting into a lot of, if we talk a lot, I think is in this world today is the sexual aspect of that. God provided for that in marriage. He provided for that in those relationships. And I'm not going to get into all that, but I'm going to say God knew our needs and our desires, and He provided it in a safe environment so that we could have a good life. And every time we walk away from that plan that God had, it causes trouble. It causes trouble in the fact and the ways that there's generations now that don't even want to have marriages and relationships now because of the things going on in their life. And see, it's important that we understand that it wasn't God's system. It wasn't the way God wanted us to do it that's failing. It's people failing because we chose worldliness over godliness. It's a serious, serious thing that we do every day, and the decisions we make that will affect our life, and not only our life, but our family's life, our kids' life, and our grandkids, and even on further down. It says that my actions will have generations of consequences. Man, when I thought about that, I was like, whew. It's not, I've said this myself, I'm only hurting myself. I was at a place in my life that I knew I was a mess. And I said, I'm only hurting myself. No, I wasn't. There's a whole list. See, it's important that we understand that we need God. And we need godliness. And we need to quit trying out the world. All the solutions that the world has. Verse 5, it says, do you think that the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? Since Adam and Eve bit of that fruit and said, God's not enough, every person that takes a breath in this world is sinners. And we have, and I hate to say this, but it's just true, we have a wicked heart. It's just natural to be mean. It's just natural to do what's wrong. And that's when Jesus said, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, that we need God. We need to have a heart transplant, basically, spiritually. And we need to take the world out and put Jesus in. When you get saved, the Holy Spirit moves inside residency. Why does He do that? Because He knows we need it. He knows we need that voice every second of our life pushing us the right direction. But what's it take? It says, but He giveth more grace. This is where God is. But He giveth more grace, wherefore He saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. How do we change our life? How do we change the way we're living? We got to start realizing that we are a mess and humble ourselves and get rid of the pride and say, I can't do this by myself. I can't do this by myself. I need you, God. That is the most important prayer you'd ever pray in your life, is say, quit trying to be the one in control and say, I need you. I need you, God. Man, you ought to see the walls start falling down when you have tears in your eyes and you mean that. Then God says, finally, I can do something now. See, God won't until we say yes. He'll sit back and patiently wait and put people in our life. He'll put a message on your heart or a radio or wherever, and He'll just keep moving and moving and trying, but He won't move until we say yes. And I say these things because in verse 7, it says, submit yourself, therefore, to God. Submit to God. We're submitting to one or the other. Do you understand that? That we're either submitting to the world and Satan, or we're submitting to God. That's the two choices. But see, the thing about it is when our life's a mess and we're just full of pride and say, I got this, or I'm okay, and we're not. The devil's got us right where he wants us. And he just keeps kicking us till we get down. Because in this verse it says, submit yourself therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. See, the reason that Satan keeps attacking us so hard is because we keep running around with him. You say, well, that's crazy. Well, I seen a deal the other day. It says, the demons are never going to leave your life unless you quit running around with them. It says we got to resist the devil. We got to say, you don't have a place in my life. I'm submitting my heart and my soul to God. And when we say that, when we believe that, and we mean that, Scripture tells us the devil flees from your life. Because he's not scared of you or me. But he's scared of God. Because he knows he's never going to defeat him. He knows that he can't overcome him. So he tries you and I. You ever know somebody in your life that just tries to hurt you just so they can feel better? That's what Satan's doing. Or that somebody that you knew tries to hurt someone you love just to hurt you. See, that's what Satan does every day. He knows he can't defeat God, so he tries to destroy you by destroying others. Or using you to destroy others. And me. I'm not exempt from that. It says, draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. See, it's a process. If we draw nigh to God, he is right there. If you look back when Peter walked on the water, remember that story where Jesus was in the storm and the boat, and Jesus was walking across the sea, and they seen him? And he started walking. And what happened? He took his eyes off Jesus, and he started to sink. And he cried out to Jesus, and what happened? Did he wait a day or two or see if he hit bottom and see if he could swim? No, it said immediately he grabbed a hold of him and pulled him up and put him in the safety of the boat. See, when we draw nigh to God and we cry out to God, God is there. He will grab you by your hand and put you back in the ship where it's safe. It says, cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. See, it's a process of two things here. It's the physical and the spiritual aspect of life. We have to quit living the life that we were living, and we have to let God work on the inside. Does that make sense? That our hands basically means our actions, the way we live life. We got to change the way we're living. We can't live like the devil and think God's going to take care of us and bless us. There's things that we have to change. There's activities we have to quit. There's people we have to quit running around with, and that's tough. I tell you what, when I did that, I had no friends. They thought I was crazy. They thought I just fell off the rocker. Let me tell you what, it took a few years, but most of my friends are in church, and some of them's preachers too. It was pretty tough for a while, but I said, no, I can't do that. We got to change our life and let God change our heart. But it takes intentionality. We have to say, I want this. There's a whole lot of things that we want in our life, and we work tooth and nail to get it, right? We sacrifice. We do without. See, there's things that we need to be working on our heart that we need to sacrifice and do without the world that tells us what we need. It says, be afflicted and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to heaviness. Man, if we would really just examine our life and where it's at and what's going on in our life, would it just not make us cry? That's what God's saying. He goes, just evaluate your life and think about it. And he says, just be serious about it. And he goes, we need to see how important the way we're living our life, how is it affecting those around us. It's that important. It says, verse 10, it says, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. So you start reading these verses, and it starts to make us sad. He says, well, God just wants us to sit around and cry? He says, no, because there's a point in time in our life that we need to evaluate it, and that we need to make things right. And when we make those things right, when we say yes, then God lifts us up, and he puts that joy and that peace and that gentleness and all that in our hearts. But we got to make a change. We got to intentionally ask him for help. do that, He will grab a hold of us like He did Peter and pull us. I'd say give us a big old hug and say, I got you. Let me carry your burdens because they're too heavy for you. And that's the truth. Satan's way stronger than you and I on our own power and our own strength. I want you to think about a few things here as I go back to verse 7 and kind of through them again. We cannot submit to fear. See, Satan screams loud and he tries to scare us. And the Bible says, resist him. Put God first. And it says, do not submit to fear. That's very important. If 2020 has taught us anything, that the world, government, media, they can put fear in your hearts. Pretty easy, right? At the top of the hour, every hour, on the radio, on TV, all of those things. It says, do not let fear control your life. The Bible tells us that true love has not fear. It goes even a little further saying that true love casts out fear. I want to get the true love that's going to take all the fear out of my heart, all the anxiety, all of those what-ifs out of my life, that I can have something secure and stable. And that something secure and stable is God. That is something we need. I want to read verses. I'm going to go on to 13 and 14. I'm going to skip a couple verses. It says, go to now that ye say, today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year, and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas ye know not what ye shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and it vanisheth away. These verses are kind of hard to understand in a sense, but here's the definition of this. How many times have you heard or even you've said this? Well, tomorrow, next week, if I get some things figured out in my life, I'll give my heart to God, or I'll start going to church, or I'll get saved when, I got a couple young years of my life. I want to party and have fun, and when I get that done, I'll give my heart to God. Man, a lot of people said that. In these verses it says, how can we think that we control our own life, that we know what tomorrow brings? What it's saying in these two verses here is saying, it says that we need to have that settled in our hearts. That God is number one, that Jesus is our Savior. And no matter what happens tomorrow, my soul or your soul is going to heaven. He says we can't be so prideful in our life to think that we're in total control and that we can handle everything that's going on. We have to put God first and put Him in control. We have to put Him in control. In 15 and 16 it says, for that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, He shall live, and do this or that. But now you rejoice in your boasting. All such rejoicing is evil. When we believe that we're in control and we're above God, it basically puts it this way. It says that's evil thinking. That we're not in control. We've never have been. In verse 17 it brings it to this. It says, therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Man, we know what's right. We do. I know there's a lot of places in the world that, in big cities probably and all those things, maybe even in Nevada at certain places that kids don't know, they have no idea who Jesus is or God. I think for most of us in our 40s and up, we knew God. A lot of you guys, you might think, well, Mom and Dad drag me to church every day and I hate it. Well, I tell you what, whether you accept God or not, you know the truth, and you know that those stories, you know that what should be done. Okay? Why do we need to know that? Well, because it's your life. It's that important. It's that serious. That we have to make a choice. We're going to choose worldliness or godliness. I want to flip on over to 1 John. 4:4. Ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Can you say that? See, that's important because Satan is a fierce enemy. It says, children of God. When you say yes to God, you become his child, his son or daughter. And he says, if you become God's child, you will overcome the powers of this world that's trying to destroy you. And greater is Jesus Christ that is in your soul than Satan that's trying to destroy it. It brings new meaning to that verse, doesn't it? Because that's exactly what's going on in your life and my life. It's a battle. And it is a very fierce battle. And we need Jesus Christ's strength so that we can be able to endure and overcome the powers of this world. It's that important. I want to go to John 8:32. It says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Do you feel free? Or do you feel a captive? Until we give our heart to Jesus Christ, we're a captive. And we just don't know we're not free. When we give our heart to Jesus Christ, you're free. I want to close with this in Galatians 5:1. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberties or the freedoms within Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. If we don't have Jesus, we're a slave. We're a slave to bondage. To know the truth is to set us free. So I just want to ask this question: is there's two choices. Which one are you following? The world or God? See, it's that important because Christians, we can give our heart to Jesus and be following the world and let the world start talking to us again. It's a constant battle of intentionally choosing God. Satan can't take our salvation, but he can take our peace. He can take our joy and make us miserable. Man, we got to choose peace. We got to choose God and quit taste testing the world. Because I promise you, there's going to be something out there that's going to bite you. And you wish you wouldn't have experienced it. We're going to play an invitation song. If God has spoken to your heart in any way, don't wait. God is there for you to cry out to say, God, I need you. I desperately need you. If you know someone that needs to say that prayer, pray for them. Our job doesn't stop when we get saved. It just begins. We need God.